Great protection again. And the sideline, it is a touchdown for Tampa Bay to Chris Godwin.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Rhett and Evan at the Cannon Fire Podcast back today, joined by our good friend James Hill, a.k.a. Mr. Bucs Nation. We have got some breaking news regarding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have elected to use the franchise tag on wide receiver Chris Godwin. This would be the second season in a row that it has been done so. But as of right now, the assumption is that he's not going to play on the tag. It seemed like the Bucs really have made it a goal to try and figure out a long-term extension for a wide receiver of number 14's caliber, and it definitely seems like something they still want to get done. So while hearing about him on the franchise tag is a big update, it shouldn't be like that for very long. Is that what we're thinking?
I think so. Now, using the franchise tag, they now have a July 15th deadline to where if they do not get a long-term deal done with Godwin by July 15th, he will play the 2022 season on the tag. Like there's no way around that. It was the same thing last year. They tagged him and they had a chance to get a long-term deal done, but they couldn't in time of that deadline. So there is a deadline. It's not just like, you have all the time in the world. You do have a certain date that you need to get it done by. But if I had to guess, I don't know if it's imminent, right? I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow or anything. But I do think sooner rather than later, you could see a long-term deal done. I just think the Bucs want to buy as much time as they can. The thing that sucks is that, this has other ramifications on other parts of the team, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I do think the end goal for both the Bucs and Godwin is a long-term deal. But for now, the tag is essentially a thing to not necessarily waste time, but buy more time.
Yeah, and we can talk all day long about what Chris Godwin means to the Bucs, what he means to this offense at the wide receiver position. But James, I wanted to get your overall thoughts on this move because a lot of people kind of expected them to franchise tag a guy like Carlton Davis and maybe have a deal in place with Godwin by now.
Yeah, I understand that some people are probably maybe not frustrated is the right word, but a little surprised that the Bucs, given all the time that they've had now to work out a long-term deal with Chris Godwin, that a move like that hasn't been done yet. But based off of what Jason Light and Bruce Arians said at the NFL Combine, bringing back Chris Godwin, that's their number one priority this offseason. He means so much to this Buccaneers offense, just the organization in general. Bruce Arians even said that he's had, I believe, 3 wide receivers in his entire coaching career that have been able to do what Chris Godwin does. And I believe it was Hines Ward, Larry Fitzgerald, and Reggie Wayne. So that's pretty good company for Chris Godwin to be in. Jason Light was also saying during the Combine that, again, to paraphrase, just like, yeah, we really, really want to bring back Chris Godwin. So while the franchise tag in some ways is frustrating, because I know a lot of people are going to say they really should have a long-term deal figured out by then, it also does make sense in the same vein of, yeah, they did not want to lose Godwin under any circumstances. They're going to do whatever they can to keep him, much like what Evan said earlier. I believe that this is more likelier than not going to just be a placeholder until a long-term deal can get done. But the value that Chris Godwin gives to this Buccaneers team in the eyes of Bruce Arians and Jason Light is astronomical. So a move like this does make sense.
Yeah, and for the people who are concerned about the cap space, Greg Allman actually released a tweet that breaks it down pretty well regarding what this $19 million or so is going to be used for, that is now going to be expected to be used on the franchise tag for Chris Godwin. So 2 ways the Buccaneers can use $19.2 million in 2022 cap space. Option number 1, give Chris Godwin the franchise tag. That's about it. Number 2, give Chris Godwin 5 years, $90 million contract with a $15 million bonus. His 2022 cap hit would be right around $6 million. You could give Alex Kappa and Jordan Whitehead 3 years for $24 million with a $7 million signing bonus. 22 cap hit would be right around $3.3 million each. You could give Leonard Fournette 3 years for $15 million, $6 million signing bonus, and a 22 cap hit of $3 million. And then Will Golston, 2 years, $8 million $4 million to sign, 22 cap hit would be $3 million. So with the news of Godwin getting the tag, a lot of people, as you had alluded to, James, not the happiest, right? I mean, I guess the way that this could be explained is it didn't exactly go according to plan. And I guess when it comes to team building in the NFL, some people are going to have to realize that not everything is going to go exactly according to plan. But Evan, I wanted to get your thoughts on just from a cap perspective, what this means for the Bucs. And then maybe we could also talk a little bit about what the market value for Carlton Davis is going to be looking like. Because again, with him expected to get the franchise tag 2 weeks ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said it was probably going to be Davis getting the tag. But obviously that thing's going to change now. And I think the Bucs almost want to see what his market value is going to be in a sense.
Yeah. And, the tough thing is you want to keep Godwin at all costs. But now with you letting Davis hit the open market, essentially, because I don't think they're going to get a deal done before he's able to hit the open market. So like the chances that you could lose your top corner go up immensely. They go up a lot. And, I think it's tough. That tweet you broke down, it's pretty simple. Of your two choices, what would you rather, right? I think I'd rather, have Chris Godwin, Jordan Whitehead, Alex Kappa, Leonard Fournette, Will Golson, all those guys back instead of just tagging Chris Godwin. So that's the frustration. And I think the other part of the frustration is when you do this, when you do the franchise tag once, the purpose is to hold off on it, right, for a long-term deal. So the Bucs have had a whole year now. I understand they had a deadline, but you could have still talked with, contract terms with Godwin. You've had an entire year to negotiate a contract, and now you're stuck again. Maybe the injury impacted some things, but now you're stuck again, essentially having a 1-year deal with him if you're not able to come to a long-term deal. And all while doing that, you're letting your top corner hit the market. So those are the two biggest ramifications, I think. Just obviously the elephant in the room is Carlton Davis, but also that $19 million for the franchise tag. Let's say he plays on it. You can manipulate the cap and everything. We saw it last offseason. I've talked about it a bunch and stuff. Everybody's talked about it. You can't do that on a franchise tag. That's $19 million that's coming right off. There is no, you can put that there, here, and there. No, like that's $19 million that's coming right off. So that has ramifications on how many guys the Bucs will be able to keep, including Carlton Davis, including Alex Kappa, Jordan Whitehead, Ryan Jensen, guys like that. So that I think is the biggest concern. It's great to have Godwin back, obviously, but I think the expectation was he was going to be back either way. You just wished it was on a long-term deal because the Bucs could have, just like Greg Allman's tweet said, on a long-term deal, you can lower the cap hit, right? We saw it last offseason. And your ideal scenario when you tag Chris Godwin last offseason is like with Shaq Barrett. They tagged Shaq Barrett in 2020, and in 2021, they signed him to a long-term deal. That's how the franchise tag should ideally work. And in this case, it just hasn't yet. So maybe they do get a long-term deal done. We all, I think, think that they will get a long-term deal done, but it does suck kind of in the short term that you have to use this resource on Godwin instead of a guy like Davis.
Yes. So let me say this too, though, is like the second scenario, right? With Greg Allman proposing, hey, a long-term deal with Godwin and then all these other players that sign on lower cap hits. That could still happen this offseason, right? It just may take a little bit more time. And also it might not be those exact players that were listed.
Because will those guys be patient enough?
Right. So maybe you don't get Alex Kappa back, but maybe you sign another veteran guard, and maybe you don't sign Leonard Fournette, but maybe you sign another veteran running back. So what Greg Allman proposed still could definitely work in terms of eventually re-signing Godwin to a long-term deal, but you definitely have to swap out some players because like you said earlier, Evan, once those guys hit the open market, your Carlton Davises, Alex Kappa, Leonard Fournette, all these other guys, the waters definitely get a lot more murkier in terms of the Buccaneers being able to bring those guys back, because now all other 31 teams can say, hey, here's an offer. And that's going to be really enticing. Like you said, Evan, would they be patient enough? We would have to wait and see on that. But, like you said, Rhett, it definitely does complicate things in terms of bringing back a guy like Carlton Davis. Evan, like you said, letting your top corner hit the open market, not a great thing. I think that Carlton Davis would definitely get a bag in the open market. There are plenty of teams out there that could very well use these services of Carlton Davis, and they'd be willing to pay. So we're gonna have to wait and see how all this shakes out. But I do want to point out that could still happen. The Greg Allman tweet talking about the long-term deal with Godwin, some of the other names, but obviously some players would probably be switched out in that scenario if everybody does go to the open market.
Yeah, as of right now, we'll start to wrap things up with this. It seems like the biggest impression that I have is really the Bucs are just buying themselves a little bit more time, right? You had a year to figure out a deal with Chris Godwin. Unfortunately, it couldn't get done. Hopefully they can figure it out between now and July, and especially with the legal tampering period starting in just about a week, there's going to be a lot of other teams reaching out to some guys on the roster. So we will see if they are patient, and obviously we will wait to see how things shake out with Chris Godwin.
Yeah, and then obviously, real quick, just to touch on Carlton Davis's potential market, I believe the franchise tag for Davis would have been about $17 million, which, he could easily get $17 million a year on a long-term deal from somebody. So I don't know if that's Tampa. We'll see, but if the Bucs, do let him hit the market, I mean, who are you going to replace him with? It's just like you said, it complicates things because you might have a gaping hole now that you weren't really counting on per se. I would have loved to know where things went south, because it sure seemed like things were heading in the direction of Davis receiving the tag and Godwin receiving a long-term extension right away. Because yes, while the Bucs can still sign Chris Godwin to a long-term extension, it's not like, once they take the tag away, we can place on Carlton Davis. No, the deadline's passed. That's done. Once you use the tag once, you can't just say, we're going to take it off you and put it on you. The Bucs have done that in the past. I will say about tagging a guy, then re-signing him. They did it with Donovan Smith a few years ago. They franchise tagged him, took the tag back, re-signed him to a 3-year contract. So it is something they've done before, like we said about Godwin. But we'll have to see what Davis's market is, and I think it's going to be interesting. I would expect him to hit the open market at least. Doesn't mean he's gone. That doesn't mean that at all. Rob Gronkowski hit the open market last year. Jason Pierre-Paul in 2020 hit the open market. Ndamukong Suh hit the open market. Leonard Fournette hit the open market. So just because a player is to hit free agency doesn't mean they're 100% gone. But just like you guys said, it's not a scenario you really want to be in, staring down the barrel of potentially losing your number one corner. That's not something you want to get involved with, because then you have to figure out how you're going to replace him. Are you going to go into 2022 with Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting as your top two corners? I don't see how that helps you. So this does make things a lot more interesting. Chris Godwin's back in the fold no matter what, but it does make things a lot more interesting for the other Bucs free agents.
Of course, we'll keep you updated on everything else that ends up happening this offseason. But folks, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you like this video, comment your opinion down below, and subscribe to the channel for more great Tampa Bay Buccaneers content. Also, check out our good buddy James, a.k.a. Mr. Bucs Nation, right here on YouTube for daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers content. We'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobbed one downfield. Caught ball.